On the 20th of April, 2022, Nicole Lenway-Ford was shot multiple times by a masked attacker on the sidewalk of a busy intersection and in broad daylight. Nicki wasn't the victim of a robbery or random violence. Surveillance video showed the signs of a planned murder. An attacker scoping the environment, hiding just out of sight, and then choosing their moment. The young single mother worked as a crime scene investigator. It was possible that she crossed paths with the wrong person at work. Or was this terrifying attack motivated by something far more personal? Hi there, I'm Kevin and welcome to Just Thought Lounge. Today we're going to Hennepin County, Minnesota, where a mother picking up her young son was ambushed in the street, and the only suspect had a rock-solid alibi. Let's take a look. In the spring of 2022, 33-year-old Nicole Lenway was working as a forensic scientist with the Minneapolis Police Department. Nicki was a real-world CSI, helping to solve some of the city's most brutal crimes. The scientist was also a single mom. In 2016, Nicki had given birth to son Callahan. Her romantic relationship with her son's father, Timothy Amaker, had not worked out. As is so often the case, the parents fought over time-sharing and argued over their arrangements. Nicki had also moved on romantically. She was in a new relationship with police officer Donovan Ford. The two had fallen for each other over an unconventional backdrop of flashing lights and crime tape. On the 20th of April, Nicki drove out to the 3000 block of University Avenue in Minneapolis. She was scheduled to collect Callahan from FamilyWise, a supervised parenting center. Tim was there, spending time with their 5-year-old son. At roughly 7:30 p.m., Nicki exited her SUV and headed for the entrance of the building. Surveillance video of the parking lot where Nicki pulled in and then began waiting for her son captured the few terrifying moments that followed Nicki exiting the vehicle. An individual wearing all black, a hood, gloves, and a medical mask appears from the far end of the parking lot and sprints towards her. In the final seconds on screen, the masked attacker raises a gun. Shots are fired, but beyond the view of the camera. A second view from a building across the intersection captured blurry images of what came next. The attacker stood over Nicki and fired several shots. Cars drive past. The shooter then ran back across the parking lot from the direction they came. Nicki miraculously managed to get to her feet. She tried first to get the attention of workers inside the FamilyWise building, but this failed. She dialed 911. Once on the call, however, Nicki realized that she must have been shot because she was unable to speak. A driver coming through the intersection witnessed the attack. She pulled her car over, helped Nicki into the passenger seat, and took over the call to 911. Emergency responders arrived in only a few minutes. Emily Clancy, the driver who had pulled over to assist Nicki, kept pressure on her neck where it appeared that she had sustained a gunshot. She was rushed to the hospital.
I was coming up. And I saw the two people, and then all of a sudden I heard bang, bang.
Emily told officers that she saw the shooter, whom she believed was likely a male, run up behind Nicki and put an object to her neck. The suspect ran off while Nicki staggered backwards. The sun went down outside the FamilyWise while law enforcement began piecing together what had occurred. On the sidewalk, they found 3 discharged .380 cartridge cases, as well as .380 live rounds. At the hospital, medical personnel found that Nicki had suffered a through-and-through gunshot to her arm, and the gunshot to her neck had caused numerous injuries, including a perforated lung. She remained in critical condition. At that stage, she was unable to communicate to investigators. Security cameras covering the parking lot and surrounding area captured a 2022 black Dodge Ram pickup truck driving past the lot several times that evening before parking just down the street. The hooded and masked attacker emerged from this truck and was seen pacing the area of the parking lot, presumably waiting for Nicki to get out of her car. To the side of the parking lot, around the side of the building and behind a fence, the hooded figure eventually stopped and waited. It is from this location that the shooter emerged from hiding and ambushed Nicki as she walked towards the entrance. The camera captured the shooter fleeing back to the vehicle the same way they had arrived. The truck did not have a license plate, and it was a common model. It was void of any other defining characteristics. Police found Nicki's ex-boyfriend, Timothy Amaker, inside the family Wise where he had just had a visit with Callahan.
Are you Timothy? Yeah. Okay, right now, I'm going to ask you if I can search you for weapons real quick, okay?
For weapons?
Yeah.
I've been here the whole time. I don't know what happened out there.
Hennepin County Police brought Tim in for questioning. They hoped that her ex-boyfriend could provide helpful information. Anything that might suggest who would wish to kill Nicki. He spent a large portion of the interview describing how he is a victim of family court, the Minneapolis police, and Nicki's own behavior. When asked if he had any idea who would have shot her, Tim said, absolutely. He claimed the shooting must be related to her job as a forensic scientist for the Minneapolis Police Department. Tim explained that Nicki had recently been concerned that someone had been stalking her.
He was afraid because he thought people were driving by her house. He changed her last name to her middle name. He shut down her social media. He had a drone of Minneapolis coming through her house all the time. He had me bring over my shotgun to her house. She was in fear.
There was nothing more that Tim Amaker could contribute to the investigation that night. Officers drove him back to the Family Wise parking lot, where he could collect his Jeep and drive home. The vehicle was also searched at that time, but nothing suspicious was found. The day after the shooting, despite suffering life-threatening injuries, Nicole Lenway woke up. The bullet that had struck her neck was less than a millimeter away from hitting an artery. If it had, she would certainly have been killed. Nicki was unable to speak, but she was capable of communicating through writing. What she told investigators was unambiguous. The father of her child, Timothy Amaker, had to have been responsible for the attack. He was the only person that she knew who was both capable and willing to kill her. There were a couple of problems with Nicki's assertion. First, that employees from the Family Wise confirmed that Tim had been inside with his son when Nicki had been shot. He couldn't have been the shooter. The second was that, in contradiction to what the key witness Emily had recalled seeing at the scene, Nicki strongly believed that her attacker had been a woman, not a man, though she couldn't say who it could have been. But whoever it was, they were put up to it by Timothy Amaker. Of that fact, she had no doubt. Nicole Lenway met the popular gym owner and Taekwondo instructor, Timothy Amaker, in 2012. Nicki had been working out at his gym, and the couple hit it off, dating for several months before deciding to become serious. Nicki eventually moved into Tim's house in St. Paul. The Taekwondo instructor, Master Amaker, as he was known to his students, was 8 years older than Nicki. Over the course of their relationship, Tim grew controlling and eventually both emotionally and physically abusive. In 2015, Nicki called it quits. She packed her things and left the house. 1 month later, she discovered that she was pregnant. Nicki had a successful career with the Minneapolis PD. In 2016, she gave birth to her son and became a single working mom. She was awarded full custody of Callahan, a decision made after Nicki told the courts about Tim's abusive nature, how he had pulled her back into the house by her ponytail when she was trying to leave him. Eventually, the two worked out arrangements to share time with Callahan. The temporary peace did not last. After Nicki met and became serious with her new boyfriend, Minneapolis police officer Donovan Ford, Tim's controlling side flared up all over again. He insisted on more and more time with Callahan. He filed complaint after complaint in court and with Child Protective Services. In the worst of his series of allegations, Tim claimed that Donovan had molested his son in Nicki's presence. The allegations against both Nicki and her new man were found to be without merit. Indeed, the 5-year-old admitted that his father had told him to lie when asked about the alleged incident so that he could spend more time with Daddy. Relentless in his efforts, Tim then filed a criminal complaint that alleged that Nicki had intentionally run over his foot with her car. She went to trial to fight the assault charges, where a jury rapidly found her not guilty. Eventually, Tim's regular visitation was reduced to only supervised visits once a week. These took place at the Family Wise on University Avenue. It happened to be just outside those doors that Nicole Lenway was ambushed and nearly killed. Back in 2015, just after Nicki packed up her things and left both Tim and the house they had shared, the Taekwondo master moved in another woman. 18-year-old Colleen Larson had been a student of Master Amaker's since she was 12 years old. Moving into the spare room at his house was said to be exciting for her, bringing the teenager into regular close proximity to a man she had idolized for years. According to former friends and neighbors, it wasn't long before their master-student relationship developed into something else. Tim had a reputation as a ladies' man, consistently dating multiple women at the same time. This was true during his time with Nicki, and remained the case when he began a romantic relationship with his young student. Although she considered herself his girlfriend, outside observers said that Colleen's role could be more accurately described as Tim Amaker's servant. Over the years that she lived at the house with him, she cooked, cleaned, and even helped care for Callahan before the supervised visitation was imposed. By the time of the shooting in 2022, this had been going on for years. All the while, Colleen continued to call boyfriend Tim Master Amaker. Employees at the Family Wise suggested to police that if it was a female shooter they were seeking, they should take a look at Colleen Larson. The theory linking Tim to the attempted murder through his young student led to a search of the house in St. Paul where the couple lived. They recovered multiple firearms in the search, but none of them was the .380 caliber used in the shooting. However, they found several .380 discharged cartridge cases. The Hennepin County Crime Lab later determined that these were fired from the same gun as those found discharged at the scene of the shooting. Investigators also learned that Tim owned additional vehicles that he had not mentioned to them when dropped off at his Jeep on the night of the shooting.
What do you mean?
This is your only car?
No, I have a Dodge Challenger too.
It turns out that Tim owned 4 vehicles in total. One of them was a 2022 black Dodge Ram, purchased in January of that year. It was identical to the truck driven by the shooter. Tim was brought in for questioning a second time. Officers confronted him with the surveillance footage showing the Dodge Ram. Tim denied that it was his truck because it did not have 2 decals on it. These were Superman symbols that adorned his black pickup truck.
So I'm gonna be the first guy you guys look at.
This is a picture right here.
That's not my truck. Those pictures were not pictures of my truck.
Surveillance of his vehicle the day following the shooting showed a temporary license plate and the decals described by Tim to police. Curiously, Tim had applied for a new personalized license plate on April 19th, the day before the shooting. He claimed to have swapped out the plate immediately. He was never driving the truck without a plate, as the shooter had been. Verifying whether Tim Amaker's vehicle was the one driven by the attacker proved to be a rather straightforward exercise. It seems that the Dodge Ram was equipped with Wi-Fi. A search warrant obtained for its GPS data enabled investigators to track the vehicle's exact movements and locations on the day of the attempted murder. At the same time, cell phone location data from both Tim and Colleen's devices were married up to the GPS tracking. 3 hours before Nicki was attacked, Colleen and Tim met at the gym Tim owned, World Taekwondo Academy in White Bear Lake. There, they switched vehicles. Tim drove the Jeep to the Family Wise building for his scheduled visit, while Colleen took the Dodge first back to their house in St. Paul. Then she also drove to the parenting center. After the shooting, she drove the Dodge Ram back to the St. Paul home using a similar route. Surveillance footage along the route captured a female driver who matched Colleen's build driving the truck. Tracking the movement of the truck just before the shooting, investigators uncovered security camera footage from a KFC drive-thru. It showed the truck with no decals and no license plate. It was easy to deduce that these were added the next morning in a failed attempt to disguise the vehicle. In the same interview, Tim was asked what guns he owned. At first, he did not mention a .380. When pressed, he said he used to have 2 .380 pistols. Colleen Larson was arrested and charged with first-degree attempted murder. She had been caught on camera, tracked in the vehicle, and lived at the home where the matching shell casings were found. Although the motive pointed squarely at Tim Amaker, the case against him was much weaker. That is, until Colleen started talking. Colleen told the detectives, "I took the truck over there, and then I shot her." When asked whose idea it was to shoot Nicki, Colleen stated hesitantly, "Tim's." But when she was asked outright, "So Tim asked you if you felt comfortable, would you shoot Nicole?" Colleen replied simply, "Yes." The student spoke softly and appeared reluctant to blatantly point the finger at her instructor-turned-boyfriend. Tim had told Colleen the same lies that he had told to the courts and Child Protective Services, that Nicki and Donovan were abusing Callahan. Except that Colleen believed him.
He was doing bad things to the child, and I wanted to help the little man.
She claimed to have no knowledge of how Tim disposed of the gun. Once the deed was done, he took care of the rest. Timothy Amaker was also charged with first-degree attempted murder.
According to court documents, Larson hid behind a fence here at the Family Wise on University Avenue. Once the victim got out of her car, she ran up from behind and fired a few shots into her neck. Part of the attack caught on these surveillance cameras. Amaker allegedly harassing and stalking the victim over the last few years. Just a few months ago, investigators say he even offered a friend $50,000 to kill her.
The defense in Tim's trial called no witnesses. He did not take the stand. But any concerns that the state had not made their case dissipated quickly when the jury returned promptly with a guilty verdict. Nicole Lenway, who had in the interim married boyfriend Donovan and became Nicki Ford, spoke at the sentencing hearing. She requested that her face not be captured in the recording. Tim Amaker faced up to life in prison.
It has been over 5 years of threats and harassment, preceded by another 5 years of mental, physical, and emotional abuse. I fear for the day he is ultimately released. He will not stop. He is self-serving, and I know losing this battle will only fuel his rage further. I fear for anyone who stands in his way, as he has the unlimited capacity to cause chaos and destruction to those he deems as adversaries. I ask that the court protect not only me, my son, and my family, but all of the others that could suffer from his past and future fury.
The Taekwondo instructor remained defiant, convinced that there was nothing linking him to the shooting, and insisting that he had been a victim of the system in various ways.
Over 100 witnesses listed, and not one person could say that they saw me do anything. Me and Mr. Reed still to this day question why I'm still sitting here. It's obvious that Miss Lenway got shot. I'm not denying that. If we make him look like a bad guy, he must be a bad guy.
I will note for the record that you have not taken any accountability for your actions. You've shown no remorse.
Tim was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Colleen Larson pleaded guilty to attempted murder 2 weeks later. There was no plea deal offered. At her sentencing hearing, the topic of discussion was the extent to which the now 25-year-old had been groomed and manipulated by her 42-year-old instructor.
She still believes now all the lies that Amaker told her.
Sure, she's younger than him. Sure, he's charismatic and manipulative, but he's not a sorcerer.
Colleen remained loyal to Tim. She stated after the plea that she had chosen to kill Nicki. 2 weeks before the shooting, Tim had in fact spoken to her about how life would be easier if Nicki went away. In that scenario, the two of them could be married. Colleen could formally adopt Callahan as her own son, and they would be a family together. She claimed that Tim was unaware of her plans that night when she drove his truck to the parenting center and tried to kill the mother of his child. Nicki also spoke at Colleen's sentencing. She had been betrayed by the young student, whom she had believed, before the shooting, was a good-hearted woman who loved and cared for her son.
She has admitted her intent and her eagerness to follow through with such violent and traumatizing actions that fateful day. She stood over me, which felt like only inches away, continuing in her attempts to end my life, even pursuing me after I fled from her. She has even admitted she had every intention of killing me. Admitting guilt was essentially her only option. In her own words, she wasn't manipulated into such actions and wanted to do this on her own volition. In either instance, manipulation or her own initiative, it's terrifying. She's either easily coerced into taking a stranger's life based on a false reality and lies, or she truly wanted to. I have been informed that she is still in contact with Tim's inner circle, still communicating her love for him, even expressing she wants a future with him. Even today, almost a year later, she remains steadfast in her love for Tim.
Judge Shireen Ascalani handed down a sentence of 16 years.
Yes, Mr. Amaker is the one who conceived the plot. He's the one who had the very strong motive to want Miss Ford dead. But it was Miss Larson's actions that put it into play. Miss Ford is alive not because Miss Larson abandoned the plan or the plot to kill her, but because Miss Larson was unsuccessful.
Timothy Amaker has filed an appeal to his conviction. Oral arguments were set to be heard in early April 2024. At the time of publication, no opinion on this appeal has been published. And that was the terrifying attack on Nicole Lenway-Ford and the story of Timothy Amaker and his student-turned-girlfriend, Colleen Larson. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you goes out to Casey A., who has recently joined our Members Lounge. I'm Kevin, this is Just Thought Lounge, and I'll see you in the next one.